Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you the best full party build guide for beginners in Baldur's Gate 3. Now this is meant for first time players, however if you have hundreds of hours in game you'll still probably find this video useful. I'll be breaking these down, showing the builds, the gear that you're going to want to use through Acts 1, 2, and 3, and then showing off the combat as well. I do have an Act 1 specific video on this, so if you're curious you can see that. There are 4 principles that we want though. We need a face of the party, so this is going to be your character. This is going to be a charisma character. I'm going to show 2 charisma based builds. We also are going to have a healer, and that's going to be a cleric, as well as a melee attacker. Now, there's kind of 2 great options here between the fighter and the barbarian. I'm going to go with the fighter because I think that's just a straightforward class that's very powerful and good for a variety of different playthroughs. And then we're going with a caster as well. So the face and the caster here are both going to be charisma based, so you can swap them if you prefer to play more of a full caster as a main character or as kind of like an all-in-one. So for the face of the party, we're going to be going with the very best subclass in Baldur's Gate 3 with the Sword Bard. This can do full casting. It's also a very powerful melee attacker. If you like a rogue style character, it's better than the rogue in this game by a lot. So it can do pretty much anything and whatever you want to build around, whether it be ranged attack, melee attacking, or spell casting. It can do all 3 of these very well. The other option, if you want to play for face of the party, is the Sorcerer, a charisma-based caster, but we'll be getting that a little bit later in the video. For the Bard, we get a cantrip Vicious Mockery here. This is really nice because the target will now have disadvantage on their next attack roll, meaning they roll 2 die and use the lowest result, so they're much less likely to attack us. This makes us great for supporting our team as an early game cantrip, but we also get friends. Now, this, if we're playing on higher difficulties, can be problematic, but if you're first time playing, you're not going to be on higher difficulties. This will give you advantage on charisma checks, which is extremely good in outside of combat situations, so you want to have that on your face. Now, for the spells that we're going to be grabbing, having a healing spell like Healing Word's nice because you can support your team a little bit there. It's also nice to have Thunder Wave because it does have a pushback and it deals thunder damage, which is not often resisted. And Dissonant Whispers is like Vicious Mockery, but better. Basically, with this spell, the target will have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls, so it's less likely to attack you, and it cannot move, so it's stuck in place, and it deals a 3d6 of Psychic. And for this final spell here, we can go with Longstrider, although this is a little bit annoying. It does increase your movement speed by 3. If you cast this outside of combat, it won't cost you a spell slot. Another good choice is Tasha's Hideous Laughter. This is an enchantment spell which will knock enemies prone, which can set up if you wanted to do get advantage on attack rolls, or if you're using a rogue, for example, it'll help them with their sneak attacks. And this is just a good underrated spell to have, but you can go with anything else if you prefer, or speak with animals, although there's a lot of potions for that in the early game. Now, the ability scores for this. There's a thing called the Hags here you can get. If you do end up grabbing that, put it to 17 and it'll boost your stat by 1 to 18. Otherwise, we're going to go with 16. Points will only count if they're even numbered. So this would be our best stat spread here. We want dexterity for our melee attack rolls, and it's going to increase our armor class, so less likely that we're going to get hit. It'll also boost up our initiative so that we move first in combat. So dexterity is actually one of the best stats in the game. And charisma, which again, we're using for our face skills, but it's also for our spell casting as well. So we want to have these. At 16, this gives us a +3. You can just mouse over there to see the +3 to charisma as well as dexterity here. And our constitution's for health. So this is a pretty solid score, although you can swap dex with constitution, but you're going to be moving less likely first in combat and getting less armor class. But level 2 gives us a really nice ability with Song of Rest. This gives us another short rest. It will proc any warlock abilities. We also get the Jack of all trades, adding half a proficiency bonus to anything we're not proficient in. And we also get to choose another spell here. Fairy Fire can be nice to help with your team because you can hold a concentration on this, and then everyone's going to have advantage on attack rolls against that target. If you're going against a boss type enemy, this is really good to help support your team. And I'd honestly recommend Featherfall early game because there's going to be a lot of situations where Featherfall is really useful outside of combat. What Featherfall does is basically you can drop down, and there's a few places you can jump in Baldur's Gate 3, and using Featherfall will help you survive going down to like the Underdark, for example. Level 3 gives us our subclass. As mentioned, College of Swords is the best subclass in the game. This is due to Slashing Flourish, allowing you to attack 2 targets at once, just using a Bardic Inspiration. Once we hit level 6, we can do this twice. That's 4 enemies hit per turn. And there's a multi-class that can let us add Divine Smite damage to it, which is pretty crazy. You don't have to do that, but it's pretty straightforward. Try to line yourself up with 2 enemies beside each other and attack. But we also get a very powerful ability, Slashing Flourish, and they never changed this, so it seems to be an intended mechanic. You can attack the same target twice with this. So this is basically, you can attack the same target 4 times once we hit level 6, because attack, 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 attack. It's really good. So we're going to roll with that. And for our fighting style, now this depends if you want to use a shield or put in a weapon in your offhand. Both of them are good. It's your personal preference here. I prefer to use a shield to increase our armor class so that we get hit less. But again, that's up to you. This will add 2 damage to the attack. And then we get to take another spell. Hold Person's a really good spell, although some people just prefer to go with damage spells. And this is where I'd actually recommend Cloud of Daggers, because this spell actually will always hit it doesn't roll an attack roll like some of the others. Like, for example, heat metal, the target has a constitution save, so it's less likely to land, whereas Clouded Dagger is guaranteed damage. You put that in a doorway and you're laughing. It's a very fun spell, so I do recommend it. But Hold Person will be a little bit better because you'll get a free critical hit on your melee attacks. So if you have 2 actions, you can freeze them and get a free melee attack. Really powerful, but I think Clouded Daggers is really good for beginners, so I'm going to throw that on there because it's just a fun, powerful spell that we can throw down as a concentration. Level 4 gives us our first feat, and we can also take another cantrip, and I would recommend either Mage Hand, so you can spawn this in, it lasts for 10 turns. What you can do with this is you can have it, you can drop a potion as a free action, and it can throw it. That may be a little bit complex, so I'd also recommend Minor Illusion, because you can use this to group enemies away. So if you wanted to steal from enemies, you can use this to pull them away from combat. It makes a little tiny kitty, and they go chase after it. It's a very underrated spell. At this next level here, Invisibility can be fun if you wanted to fill more of a stealth-based role. Knock is another good spell. If there's any locked doors, this will automatically open them. I would recommend if you ever see scrolls of Knock to buy them right away. Very useful to have the ability to do that, especially later on in the game. And you are the lock picker, but that works much better, to be honest. Hold Person is my preference here. It's a very powerful spell. We want to have this because it sets up our other attackers. Again, we're a melee attacker support, so this is one of the best support skills in the entire game. It just takes an enemy out of battle, and you're all going to be able to do extra damage. The first thing that I'd recommend is typically a charisma increase. However, if you like to go first in combat, the alert feat is very good. This basically means you'll always be going first in combat. If you get up to a point where you can take enemies out really quickly in combat, this is a good one to have. However, a charisma increase also works great too, or a dexterity if you want to have a higher survivability, armor class, and melee attack rolls. I think charisma just works well for the face of the party. At level 5 here, we get Bardic Inspiration back after short rest now, and it will now be a 1d8 instead of a d6, which is really good. And we also get a very underrated spell. Glyph of Warding is like Fireball, but shorter range. It does a little bit less damage, but you are also able to do a sleep glyph. If you're playing a half-elf or an elf, you can't be put to sleep, so you can drop this at your feet if you get surrounded. Everything around you will go to sleep, typically, and you'll get out of there safely. And then anyone that attacks him gets critical hits as well. However, you can do a fire, ice, lightning, whatever you want type of Glyph of Warding. It's really powerful. Good to have, and I recommend throwing it on. You can set it up outside of combat as well. Level 6 is a huge power spike because now we get our Slashing Flourish, which lets us do our Slashing Flourish twice, so we can do the attacks, hitting an enemy 4 times. Pretty powerful. And we also get another spell here with Fear being a good choice, which can make enemies drop their weapons. If you want their weapon, you can pick it up, and then they just will punch you. So it's really nice. Hypnotic Pattern is a good spell in tabletop D&D. It's only 2 turns in BG3. And Plant Growth is a really good one. Why I like Plant Growth, it doesn't have a concentration, and it's going to quarter movement speed, so you can slow down the enemies. It's pretty useful in that situations. But we can also go back and take things like Silence or Shatter if you want a few other damage options. I think Plant Growth is a really good spell just for setting up our team. And at next level, we get a few other really good spells. Greater Invisibility is good because you can turn invisible, and you can do a bunch of crazy stealth things by staying invisible with Greater, because this won't break your invisibility like the other invisible spell. So with this, we can hide out, have a ranger, if you have one on your team, use Pass Without Trace to get a boost to your stealth checks, and then basically stay stealth forever. It's pretty cheesy and very complex, so I'm not going to suggest it for this build. But we also get Confusion, which is really nice. Basically, enemies have a 50-50 chance of either skipping their turn or attacking randomly whoever's nearby. So it's really good if you can get it to land because it hits a huge area of effect. So that's a really good spell. Don't have to use it all the time. The big reason I'm suggesting it is because it doesn't hit your teammates. So you don't have to worry about that. Now, next level, Greater Invisibility is a really good spell. Polymorph's fun too. You turn them into a sheep. Where this is good is you can turn them into a sheep and then like knock them off of a ledge and take them out. That is unfortunately going to lose you the loot, so I wouldn't recommend it. Greater Invisibility is outside of combat. Dimension Door is also a good spell because you can teleport a teammate away with you, but it uses a level 4 spell slot. For our level 8 feat, I'd actually recommend Alert at this point. Going first as the face of the party with a lot of tools that we have is good because then we can free up our next teammates to go, and you can sometimes end combat really quickly this way. Level 9, we get Hold Monster. Similar to Hold Person, but it works against a lot of the bosses we'll be facing later on in the game. This is a really good spell. We basically need to get our spell save DC up so that we do land it. But when we do, it's very powerful. And thankfully, there's an item that we can get relatively early on to help land that spell. It can help win you boss fights. Because everything that you do when you're at close range, so your fighters will go in and do melee attacks that critically hit. Now we get to take one last spell. I'd actually recommend Mage Hand at this point. Light can be okay too for certain instances, but Mage Hand just really useful utility-wise. Now, Dominate Person is an okay spell. You can make someone fight alongside you. It doesn't require you to control them, so it's less thinking. You just pop this concentration. I don't normally recommend this spell, but I think it's actually a decent one in this situation because it does what it says on the front. You dominate the person. So now level 10, this is kind of where we get our biggest benefits here. I personally really like Cone of Cold and Conjure Elemental. I think this is the best combination. Reason being is you get a water elemental, their main punch will double cold damage. So this 64 damage becomes 128 max potential damage. That's really good. And it's your summon. The summons will take hits away from your team. If you want to be a full support and you like the elementals, this is a good combination. There's also some other good ones. There's Spirit Guardians. This is a really powerful spell that the cleric gets. I'm not going to use it for this build, but I do want to mention it. And also Hunger of Hadar, another great concentration, but we get it pretty late in the game where I'd rather have this in the mid game. It's big crowd control and it blinds enemies. We can also grab Counterspell. This is just a really good support spell. It stops the spell from being cast. There's also Command, which is good, but we can multi-class and get that. Scorching Ray is another powerful spell, but we don't need it. And Banishing Smite's another good one. This is the equivalent of a level 5 Smite, so it adds a 5d10 of force damage onto your melee attack, and it'll possibly banish the target. It's a really good spell that only the Bard gets, so I like to also go with this spread here. I do prefer having a Conjure Elemental, but you can also get Scrolls. You don't have to use the magical secrets to get that. So I'm going to take those two, just go all out. Kind of makes sense offense. We'll then take Intimidation and Persuasion for our skill proficiencies to add, as those are ones we'll be using as the face of the party quite frequently. Level 12 gives us another spell. Now, Eye Bite is kind of interesting because you can put someone to sleep every single turn. We also get Auto's Irresistible Dance, which will always succeed the first turn, but then they can break it, so it's a resistible dance, but they can't resist the first turn. My personal recommendation, multi-classing is not typically, you can go and take both of these spells or a healing spell if you wanted to. And then for your final feat, go with an increase to your charisma to take it up to 20. I'm going to recommend something else as you may be a little bit later in the game. You can switch it off Explorer and add in a multi-class and switch it back if you wanted to. I think a really good multi-class is the Paladin because with this, we get some more healing. We don't change our spell casting. I also like the Oath of Vengeance because this can add additional radiant damage onto our attacks and daze enemies, which gives them disadvantage on wisdom saves, and they lose their armor. They lose a bit of benefits to armor class, so that's really nice. The Oath of the Crown can also help out by buffing up your teammate so that they get a plus proficiency bonus to their attack rolls, which is really nice. And if you end up breaking your oath, it's not a big deal, but we'll grab the Oath of Vengeance here. The reason being is we actually get a few really nice things for this build. We get Divine Smite, so we can cast these up to level 4, and they're going to add a 2d8 of radiant damage, and then you can upcast for an additional 1d8 every time that you go up in level. This is a lot of burst damage, so this makes us really powerful in melee range. There's also another really nice thing. We can turn these on to reactions. So when we do our slashing flourish and hit 2 enemies, we'll smite both of them and smite both of them. So this is going to be one of the most powerful combinations in the entire game. And this is one of the most powerful combos. So for the face of the party, people like the power fantasy, this is a really good way to do that and become really strong. We also get to take another fighting style, which gives us something like defense to further increase our armor class by 2. And to top it all off, we get another spell that we wanted from the Magical Secrets with Command. This is a essential part of why I like this so much, and you'll see why. Basically, this doesn't require concentration, so if you're holding one, you can make enemies just skip their turn. If you tell them to walk towards you and you have like someone with a area of effect damage spell, it just takes them out really quick and easy. We also get Bless, which is nice to support the team a little bit further. Searing Smite, Wrathful Smite, and Thunderous Smite, so you get a few other smites. Don't recommend using these. They use your bonus action. That's not good. Thunderous Smite is not even that great because we do have the Thunder Wave, so you don't even have to use that. You could take Shield of Faith for the +2 armor class, or even something like the Cure Wounds. But you know, I guess Divine Favor. It's really, none of the spells really matter. We got Command, we got Divine Smite, we got everything we want. All right, now for equipment. I do have a video on Act 1 in particular. If you're in Act 1, you can check that out for a bit more specifics. Will cover items from Act 1 because like things like the Knife of the Undermountain King are full game items. This one will give you increased critical hit chance, you reroll your damage die, and you have advantage on attacks whenever you're lightly or heavily obscured. So that is really good, especially if you have a way to set up darkness. There's ways to do darkness. It's a little bit complicated for this, so I'm not going to include it because it's just a little bit more complex. Another really good item that's really easy to get in Act 1 is Father Aluve. Why this is good is it uses finesse, so that means that you use your dexterity for attack rolls as well. We want finesse weapons since we spec'd into dexterity. You can use a strength potion that is complex, so I'm not going to cover that. But this comes with a special weapon action, the Singing Song here. And this is really good because it's going to deal additional damage with the Shrieking Song. So they take additional 1d4 of thunder every time we attack them. And they get a penalty, a 1d4 penalty to their saving throws. So we're able to land our spells so much more easily this way. It's really good. An Act 3 item, if we're using a strength potion, I really like the Blackguard sword. So if it hit infused with one of your smites, the target must succeed a constitution saving throw or become dazed. This is insanely good, but you do have to use a strength potion to get the most out of it, so it's not one that I'd always recommend, but this is one of the most underrated swords in the entire game, so I do want to mention it. Another really good item from the early game is Laurentian's Wrath. This comes with a special weapon skill, the Razor Gale here, which can hit in a large area of effect too, so, and it's also a dexterity-based weapon. I'm going to use Baldur. I do really like this weapon here, and use your best available shield. In the early game, you can go with, like, there's the Shield of Devotion here, which will give you an additional spell slot, and it'll also give you the aid spell so you can heal your team and protect them a little bit more that way. There's also the Viconia's Walking Fortress is a late game item that's good. The Squire's Sled Board's decent, giving you Force Conduit to protect yourself. The Justiciaries, and there's even the Sentinel Shield, which will give you an additional bonus to your initiative. And the Adamantine Shield is another good one. This you can get in Act 1. It'll send the reeler. When an attacker misses you, you can make them go reeling, which will give them negatives to their attack rolls, which is really nice. And also for weapons, hand crossbows. You can buy a green hand crossbow from Damon in Act 1. I'd recommend those. Nair Mister in the offhand is really good, and then Hellfire hand crossbow in the main hand. So when we're invisible, we can inflict burning on the enemy, which is really great. There's two good hats that I would recommend for this. So Act 3, the Birthright will give you a +2 to Charisma, which is really great. But when we're in the early game, the Haste Helmet's one of the first helmets you can get. Gives you increased movement speed. That's amazing. But I would say the best build is actually the Helmet of Arcane Acuity. So where this is really good is you get Arcane Acuity. If you don't know what this means, it boosts your chance to land your spells. So with this, we can do a weapon attack by using an arrow from many targets, which when you see those, buy them from the shop every single time because it'll attack multiple enemies at a time, which procs this, giving you a +10 to your spell save DC. You can check that by pressing K on the keyboard to open up your spell menu here, and you're going to see this, your spell attacks and your spell save DC. So we got +4 from our charisma and proficiency bonus and 1 from our items. We can get another +10, which means our spells are much more likely to roll because the enemy has to roll a 10 higher on the die to succeed. So that's why we want this, because it can stack up to 10. It's very powerful, and it's available in Act 2. Highly recommend grabbing it. And we also do have other items like the Hat of Storm Science Power, which when we do thunder damage, we have the Thunder Wave spell. Similar effect, but this one's just way more powerful. What's kind of funny is the Fowler Loop Thunder damage doesn't actually proc it, unfortunately, but you can buff your weapon with thunder damage to get it. That's something I'll mention a little bit later. We also got the Cloak of Protection. Really, whatever cloaks you got, use them. I would recommend your Cleric having the Thunderskin cloak, however, but we'll get to that in a second. The Armor of Agility, anyone can get this in any playthrough, so I'm just going to recommend this. It's the best medium armor. However, if you're in the early game, the Adamantine Scale Mail is fantastic, Act 1. Use the best available. Check your armor class. Some of them will add more than your dexterity modifier. Like typically you get a +2 or +3. Some of them like this will add your full dex modifier, which is how we get 27 armor class. So the enemy has to roll a 27 to hit us. I also like the Helldust Gloves. This is a late game item. You can also roll with, if you're in the early game, like the Gloves of Balanced Hand is nice if you didn't take the 2-weapon fighting style. Dark Justiciar Gauntlets will add additional damage onto it. The Gloves of the Belligerent Skies will apply reverberation, which can knock enemies prone when we deal thunder damage like Thunder Wave. But this is a late game really good item because it'll boost our spell save DC and deal fire damage on our melee attacks. And the Evasive Shoes, really, again, boots are whatever's best possible. You can go with the Boots of Aid and Comfort in the first act to get additional health points when you heal somebody. But I think that we want to have that. I like for the face of the party having the high armor class gear just to keep myself safe, just me. And then I also put on the Ring of Protection, keep an armor class 27. But the most important ring here, the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel. When you're in Act 3, you want to find this. Early game, I guess I'll mention a couple early game items. The Caustic Band is really good in the early game. Ring of Free Movement's great. So you can go with those items as well. And the Risky Ring is kind of good sometimes too. But with this, we can cast our Illusion and Enchantment spells as a bonus action. So we can attack the enemy and then do a free bonus action Vicious Mockery. Or we can cast Confusion, Hold Person. And since we took Command, we can also do Command. We can do Tasha's Hideous Laughter. So this becomes really powerful. Command is going to be our best one because it doesn't break our concentration, so we can have Hold Person on one, critically hitting another, and then using a bonus action command to make a target hit come towards us, for example, or knock prone. So that's a really good ring. It's available in Act 3 from the Genie. Don't miss it. It's very powerful. But even if you don't have this, late game, you're still fine because you could use many other items. The Ring of Free Action is nice because you can run around pretty freely with that. It's good. The Crusher's Ring gives you increased movement speed, so that's nice. Shadow Cloak Ring will give you an additional 1d4 of damage on your attacks. The Snowburst Ring with Cone of Cold also works good, so that's a few other rings you can go with. Now, if you're watching this video, you probably have Shadowheart. Typically, most people include her on her runs and have her as a cleric. That's what she's meant to be. She comes to the Trickery domain, which is the worst domain, unfortunately. My personal recommendation, so the life domain is great for first time players because healing's good, but my counterpoint to why I don't like using life domain for new time players when I recommend a cleric is that you don't get any unique spells, and typically healing is not good. You want to be proactive versus reactive. This is a big thing. Reactive is healing back all the health you lost. With the lightning domain, Tempest here, or the light domain, we prevent the enemies from hurting our team, so we don't have to heal and we can actually dish out damage. My personal recommendation for a first time player is the light domain cleric. The reason being, you get a lot of damage spells, so you fill the role of a damager, a support, and a healer all in one. You can still heal almost as good as a life domain cleric, like very close actually. But the big difference is you get at level 1 Burning Hand. You also get Scorching Ray, which is one of the best fire spells. You also get Fireball, which is, again, if you've used it, you know is a very fun and powerful spell. You also get Wall of Fire. And then at level 9, we get Destructive Wave. This is one of the best spells in the game. And there's only 2 clerics that get it, the Light Domain and the Tempest Domain. So we want that spell. It's a huge area of effect. It doesn't hit our teammates. It pushes them away. It's really good. And you can do it 3 times per long rest, and more if you have items. So with that out of the way, we're going Light Domain. It's really good. Burning Hands, great spell. Early game, Fairy Fire, great support spell. But Warding Flare, whenever someone attacks us, we can use our reaction to make it have disadvantage. So we're less likely to get hit. Disadvantage is good, really, because the enemy rolls a die. Let's say they got a critical success on their first. Then they roll another one. They roll a failure. They are going to fail. What's great about this is later on, we can actually apply this to our entire team. So this is really good. Now, we also get to take, if you're, I guess you can choose the high F cantrip. Don't use it. It uses intelligence. But we're going to want to use the new cantrip, Toll the Dead. So this has a wisdom save. You can see it at the bottom above where it says action there. Sacred Flame is good too, but it uses a dex save. Dexterity is very high in the Act 1. Goblins have a high dexterity, so you're not going to land this often. This also does more damage, so Toll the Dead's great. Guidance is another really good cantrip. This is going to be your out of combat savior. It's so useful. You could also go with Blade Ward if you want to take half damage from physical damages, but I think this works better. Bruce Flame is also kind of nice because you can throw the fire that you shed, but you do have to use an extra. There's another choice for that. But our ability scores on this one, we're going to want to roll with a little bit of a different spread here. So Wisdom 16, 16 Constitution, and 14 Dexterity. The reason that we're going with this spread here is that we don't have any items to boost our Constitution. We want to stay alive. We're going to use an item that only gives us a +2 Dexterity modifier. And our Wisdom score is our most important stat spread. Level 2 gives us a really nice ability, the Radiance of the Dawn, which you can get rid of darkness. There's a couple of moments where this is really nice in the game. Turn Undead would allow you to turn all dead that you can see, which is kind of nice too. Now we get to prepare our spells. We could always prepare them, but what we're going to want to have is Command, again, a great spell. Guiding Bolt, Sanctuary. This is a bonus action to protect a teammate. This is really good. Again, reactive versus proactive. This will protect a teammate you need to stay alive. They can be hit with area of effect spells like Fireball or Volleys, though. Healing Word is just a better heal, I would recommend, because it's a bonus action. Healing, again, is not our best choice of things to do, but it's there if we need it. And Create or Destroy Water is good because you can set up, like, our Bard has Cone of Cold. If you use Create or Destroy Water, it doubles the damage of it. This is a really good spell. It's a little bit complex, but I'm going to include it here because there's a few moments in the game where having water is really good. If you don't want to use it, Shield of Faith can increase your armor class by 2. That's another good choice. Actually, we'll take Bless. Bless is a little bit better at this point. Getting a 1d4 bonus to attack rolls and saving throws is a big benefit, but Create Water can be really good too. Now, this is what I was mentioning about this spell being, the Light Cleric being really good. You get a summon, Flaming Sphere. This does require concentration, but it creates a little fireball that can take attacks for your team and deal a bit of damage. And you get Scorching Ray, which is a very powerful damage option. We also get another prepared spell here, and we can take things like Hold Person. Prayer of Healing is not good because you heal enemies, or you heal your team only outside of combat. Why this is bad? We have a Bard that has an extra short rest. And in Baldur's Gate 3, you want to be resting often. So always get any type of food and things that get your camp supplies up. This is a very not great spell. We want Hold Person or Spiritual Weapon. And I'm going to mention this. A lot of people don't like this spell because it's kind of hard to use sometimes. So only use the Maul. The Maul has a special attack which can daze enemies. It's the best choice. But the thing with Spiritual Weapon is it's going to take attacks away from your teammates. So sometimes its best use is just helping your team survive. But the way you want to use it is by summoning it in at the backline. Don't summon it beside you. Summon it right behind where the enemies are so that it has a better chance of actually moving and hitting them because it doesn't move very far. So just a little note on that as you want to use it kind of in the enemy's backline. Level 4 gives us another feat. We'll take either Produce Flame or Resistance. Resistance has some nice options or uses in the early game, so we'll take it. And then we'll throw on Hold Person. Ignore the other spells there. I have a mod installed. Forgot to remove. Now level 4. I would actually recommend Alert's nice to get increased initiative, but the Cleric is good to have Wisdom saves high. Wisdom saves will shut down your team if you're not careful, and having your Cleric there to resist them is really important. Now, level 5, we get Fireball. As mentioned, great spell, 86 of fire. It's huge. We also get 2 more spells so we increase our Wisdom modifier so we can prepare another one. But we also get Spirit Guardians. Now, we typically want to hold our concentration on Spirit Guardians. This is one of the best spells in the game. It's going to do a 3d8 of Radiant or Necrotic. Typically choose the Radiant damage. There's a few options, or a few times where you don't want to, but you're going to make it so enemies can't turn invisible. You get them debuffed, which can set up for the gear. But the damage is really good. You can only do it once per turn. So that's why I said the Bard shouldn't take it, because if you both had it, only one of you guys can damage them per turn with it. But what this does is it sets up all of our gear. And all of this gear can be acquired in Act 1. So it's actually a very powerful build that's set up really fast. And it's powerful throughout the entire game. And it's good in so many different situations. We're also going to throw on Mass Healing Word, which lets you do a 1d4 heal on all your teammates. It's not powerful, but it's a bonus action. And if we have specific gear, we can provide healing and buffs to our entire team. Now, level 6 is a great buff. We get improved Warding Flare, which lets us apply to our teammates, so we can use a reaction to pose disadvantage on an attack roll again. If they are going to hit, we can prevent them from hitting, which is huge. Now, we also can take Glyph of Warding, as mentioned. If you're a half-elf, you can put a sleep glyph around you, or an elf put a sleep glyph around you, or you can do a damage with it. There's also Create or Destroy Water. Again, I'm just going to mention it there, because it is a really good support spell. Level 7 gives us our Guardian of Faith, which we were going to take, and Wall of Fire. This is another concentration, but Spirit Guardians is better, so we typically want to have Spirit Guardians up. We also get things like Banish, Freedom of Movement, and Death Ward. Death Ward's actually kind of underrated, so if you were to go down, it'll let you actually ignore that and stand back up and have at least 1 health. If you have someone that takes a lot of damage, put this on them. Like if your Sorcerer is getting taken out often, put this on them. Freedom of Movement is nice too, because you can snap them out of not moving. It's actually a pretty useful spell, so I'd recommend actually using that in certain times, because it is a good get out of jail free card. Level 8, this gives us our potent spell casting, so we can now add our Wisdom modifier to the damage we deal with Cleric cantrips, so we now have a +4 on all of our cantrips. That's nice. We'll also go back and take Create Water here, and for our next feat, I think Alert's a good choice. Again, we want to move first. Having our whole team move first is so important, because you can end combat sometimes before it gets out of hand. And level 9 is when we get our best ability. We get, as mentioned previously, Destructive Wave. You also get Flame Strike. Same concept, you do the same damage, but fire damage is commonly resisted. Thunder is not. And this has a much larger area, and it's going to knock enemies prone. This is the way better spell. This one's okay, and a couple times here and there, but most times you're going to use Destructive Wave. Again, it's a very exclusive spell. Not a lot of characters get it. I like Insect Plague. Some people don't like the spell, but it creates difficult terrain. It does a little bit of damage. It's an okay concentration, but I'd still recommend Spirit Guardians. And Mass Cure Wounds. I'm actually going to throw this spell on because it's a level 5 spell slot. It does a 3d8 of healing. It's not a massive heal, but again, most people like to have a healer, and this allows us to do every roll pretty well. Level 10 gives us another cantrip. Produce Flame is okay to take because this will light you up. You can actually cast it and then have a light source on your character and not have to use it. Level 11, we get another one of the spells in the game, which is one of the best, with Planar Ally. What this does is it lets us summon either a Genie, a Diva, or a Cambion. I'd recommend the Genie for the pushback, or the Diva, because the Diva can revive your team, and it also has a very powerful melee attack. So both of those, this is one of the most powerful spells in the game, because summons are pretty broken. That's why I didn't want to take one on the Bard as well, because it becomes a lot. Now, we get a final feat here. I'd actually recommend taking our Wisdom up all the way to 20. This will help with our spell casting, but we also can prepare another spell if we wanted to. The Warcaster feat is another really good one, though. So this gives us advantage on Constitution saving throws so that we hold our concentration. But we also get another reaction. This part kind of sucks. We do get Shocking Grasp at a melee target that moves away from us, which gives us a weaponized reaction, which is nice. However, we then can't use our improved Warding Flare, so I don't love to take that. You can also go with the Spell Sniper and take Eldritch Blast. Some people like to have Eldritch Blast. Lucky Feat is good to help protect your Cleric. You get 3 lucky points, which gives you advantage whenever you got disadvantage. It's actually a nice get out of jail free card as well. But if you want to keep it simple, Wisdom increase all the way up to 20. All right, now this build comes online in Act 1, which is amazing. So in Act 1, you can get the best armor here. We've never taken this off. The Luminous Armor. When the wearer deals radiant damage, you create a Radiant Shockwave. This creates a 3 meter, so like a fireball size Radiant Shockwave, which applies 2 turns of Radiating Orbs. Now, Radiating Orbs is the focus of this build. You may have heard it before, but if you don't know what it does, it makes the enemy have a minus onto their attack roll. We can stack this up to -10. So similar to getting our spell save DC boosted, what this does is if the enemy has a -10 to their attack roll, and let's say they rolled a 15 to hit us, and that means that they don't hit us. Basically, it's boosting our entire team's armor class, so we're not getting hit against that particular enemy. It's an incredibly powerful buff, and it's going to keep your team safe. And this is why I mentioned the Light Cleric is so much better, because the life domain would be just healing your team back up to health. With this armor, we're preventing them from getting hit in the first place. This is why it's so good for beginners. You just put this on, and it does its thing. Now, this also pairs well with Luminous Armor and the Luminous Gloves. Same concept. When the wearer deals radiant damage, they get 2 turns of radiating orbs. We also then have the Boots of Stormy Clamor, an Act 1 item. When the wearer inflicts a condition, which is radiating orbs, we apply Reverberation. Reverberation, basically, it gives the enemy minuses onto their saving throws for the Strength, Dexterity, and Constitution. And what this means is that they're more likely to break their concentrations on spells. But when we get 5 stacks of this, the enemy actually takes a 1d4 of thunder damage, which can actually do some pretty silly stuff. We also got the Thunderskin Cloak, so whenever someone with Reverberation, which is again coming from this, attacks us, they have to do a Constitution saving throw or become dazed, which lets us land Hold Person easier. This is really synergetic. Again, Act 1 items. And we also get the Holy Lance Helmet. So when a creature misses us with an attack, we do a radiant attack at them, and you guessed it, this radiant damage procs our gear. This is for if they miss us, which they're likely to miss us when they have a -10 to their attack rolls. What's furthermore great to this is we can also then throw on the Adamantine Shield, which when a melee attack misses you, they are sent reeling. Reeling is basically the same thing as radiating orbs. It gets a -2 to their attack rolls. It is really silly. This also makes it so they can't critically hit us, because one of the problems is if they rolled a 20, they could hit us. This changes it so that they can't land that critical hit. Very powerful. And another Act 1 item, the Blood of Lathander. Now, we're not going to be meleeing with this. This basically just gives us a get out of jail free card with whenever we go to 0 health, we stand back up. We also create a light source, and we get Sunbeam, which we can use once. It's a nice spell to do a huge area effect damage. It's great for when you get it, and it's a very powerful spell. You can also use Fowler Alluve, like that weapon I mentioned there. It's a good debuffing weapon you can throw on here. You really are free with the Cleric to use whatever items you want. There's a few staffs that are really nice. You'd also use the Shield of Devotion if you didn't want to use that. There's also the Morning Frost if you want to add on cold damage to it, which is kind of silly, but this can support your others, because this can, whenever you do cold damage, you can apply Chilled, and you also get a Ray of Frost cantrip that uses your Wisdom. So it gives you another cantrip, and you can get this staff in Act 1. It sounds silly to put it on a fire-based Cleric, but it supports your Bard and it supports your Sorcerer in the late game, so it's really nice. Now, the item I was mentioning earlier, a really good support item is the Drake Throat Glaive. You can use the elemental weapon on somebody on your team. I typically get my Cleric to do it, just feels right. They can put like thunder damage onto your attack or cold damage, and you get a 1d4 extra damage. It's really good. There's also the Staff of Spell Power and Mistress Blessing Staff, which are also really nice, but I think the Blood of Thunder just fits perfectly. We also got the Darkfire Shortbow, which gives us resistance to fire and cold damage, and a free haste spell, although we do want to hold our concentration on Spirit Guardian, so this could be better on somebody else, but there's another haste bow that we can talk about. Now, I also like to put on the Callous Glow Ring, which will give us additional 2 points of radiant damage against targets that are illuminated. It doesn't say it's radiant damage, but it is, and it will proc our gear, so it's crazy. Yeah, there's a lot of synergetic things here, and I'd also like to put on Crusher's Ring, because this gives us 3 meters of movement speed, which matters a lot when we have Spirit Guardians, because we want to run around and hit as many as we can with that. And then our best amulet is actually the Amulet of Devout, giving a +2 to our spell save DC, and an additional Channel Divinity, which gives us 3 of them per short rest, which is really nice, so that's really good. We got a really synergetic set of gear here that can all be acquired pretty much in Act 1. Now, we need someone to be kind of tanky for us. Karlach and Lae'zel both fit that role very well if you want to have a feel lore appropriate. You can make them both fighters or barbarians. Karlach better as a barbarian, Lae'zel better as a fighter. I'm going to have Karlach as a fighter here. I think the fighter is more straightforward for the first-time player, and just a very powerful option. They get 3 attacks at level 11, meaning they can do a bit more than the barbarian would in a fight. The barbarian's best builds are more complex. They typically revolve fighting, throwing, and the fighter is just going to do straight-up attacking, so it makes it a lot easier. Now, I'd recommend defense for your +1 armor class. Again, this just helps with survivability. If you want to tank hits, it's actually better to have your armor class lower, so we can alternatively add in the great weapon fighting. When you roll a 1 or 2 on a damage die for a 2-handed melee weapon, that die is rerolled once. This is really good on if you have a greatsword, because they do a 2d6, so it's going to reroll 2 damage die, so a little bit more damage out of that. And for our stat spread, we can roll with something like this. We typically want to have a high strength, decent dexterity, and high constitution, so we can survive a lot of hits and deal a lot of damage. And decent wisdom too. If you could get that up to 12, that'd be nice, but it's hard to spread them that thin. Having dexterity at that gives us a +2 to initiative. Now the fighter is very straightforward. They also get action surge. This lets you do another action anytime, which if once we hit level 11, that's 3 more attacks, so they're very strong. At level 3, we get to choose a subclass. Now, I do have a build on the Eldritch Knight, and I think the Eldritch Knight is better by a hair. It's very close. The Eldritch Knight is fantastic. It's a mixed spellcaster. If you want to do it, I do have a build on it, but you'd grab like Booming Blade and then Shield for spells. Check out the full video on that if you prefer. I'm going to go with the Battle Master. I think this is better for first-time players, and it's just in general a strong class. Like it's honestly, it's S tier, one of the best in the game, because the maneuvers are so good. Now, there's particular ones that suck, and this is where it gets confusing for a lot of players. I'm going to make it a little bit easier. We want Riposte. The reason we want Riposte, it weaponizes our reaction. So we get an action, a bonus action, and a reaction. Being able to attack on a reaction is absurd. This is really strong. And the better part about this is, so when an attacker misses us with an attack, we do an attack, but it does an additional 1d8 of damage. That's really good. I also recommend grabbing Rally. So our Bard can heal, our Cleric can heal, and now our Fighter can heal. This gives 8 temporary health points. Why this is good, if you have a teammate that went down, you can rally them back up. And it's actually better to do Rally for a few reasons. It's a bonus action, and it cannot be counterspelled. Typically, when you try to heal back your teammates that are down, it's going to get counterspelled. This can't be counterspelled. Now, the final choice, I like Disarming Attack. This does what it says on the tin. It makes the target drop their weapon most times. It's a strength save, so it's not a common save that's going to be high on enemies that don't have a high strength. It's good too because you can do it as a ranged version, and at minimum, it adds extra damage onto attacks. However, I think that the better choice is Menacing Attack, which can possibly frighten the target. So this is what Dissonant Whispers does, Dissonant Whispers is a very powerful ability. They get disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls, cannot move. So this is good because you can frighten a target from range. But Disarming Attack is also nice too. Pushing Attack is decent as well as it pushes the enemies back. But I think that these ones work well. I'm also going to give a shout out to Trip Attack, but we want to have Riposte and Rally and one of these for an attack. Typically, we want to save our die for Riposte, as that's going to be the best choice. Now, level 4 gives us another feat. I'd actually recommend at this point maybe going with the Alert feat. Having your Fighter go first early on is really good because they can also use Action Surge. So typically, I go with an ability score improvement first, but I think the Fighter is better early game to be your first mover because they can reduce targets really quickly, especially once they hit level 5. They get the extra attacks. You can go boom, boom, attack, attack. Action Surge, attack, attack, bonus action. Pretty strong. Now, level 6 gives us another feat. The Fighter is very special in that way where they get 2 feats. So we can then use this to either increase our Constitution if we want to survive a little bit more, or Strength if we want to do heavier hits. Alternatively, you could use a Strength Potion too. But I think that this is a good choice. Also, I'm going to mention Great Weapon Master. This makes it a little bit harder to hit, and you can toggle this off. It gives a -5 to attack rolls, but plus 10 damage. It's really nice. So this is a good choice too. Some people really like it. So I'm going to take it here, but you can go with the increase your Constitution or Strength as well. Level 7 gives us 2 more maneuvers. So at this point, we can take Disarming Strike. Don't take Sweeping Attack. It sounds good, but it only does a 1d8 of damage. And you use your full attack for a measly 1d8. Don't do it. Trip Attack is another good choice. It does your full weapon damage and then possibly knocks the target prone. The other ones are okay. Like some of them are interesting. Like Fainting Attack will use up your bonus action. Evasive Footwork can use a die to basically make the enemy have disadvantage on attack rolls against you, which is not great because the enemy then won't attack you. We want them to attack us. And then we can always use Commander Strike, but it's kind of complex. We'll keep it to Disarming and that for the simplicity of it because they're powerful. Level 8 gives us another feat. Now, at this point, I think it's good to go with the increase to our Constitution or Strength. Depending on, I'm going to increase Constitution and use a Strength Potion. You can also just go with an increase to your Strength. It's probably better to do Strength at that point. Level 9 gives us Indomitable, so when we fail a saving throw, we get to re-roll it. This will save our hide many times. But level 10 is nice because our superiority die becomes a 1d10. So we now, instead of adding a 1d8 damage, we add a 1d10, making our riposte pretty powerful. We also get to take 2 more of these. There's not really any good choice. Pushing Attack's really a decent one. You could use Precision Attack. Your next weapon attack gets an attack roll bonus equal to your superiority die. So you could use this if you're really not likely to hit an attack. I guess these 2 are decent, especially on this build with Great Weapon Master. And then level 11, Extra Attack. Need I say any more? It's really strong. Finally, we get to our last level here. Now, we can stay with this and take a feat to increase our Strength or Constitution up even higher. There's also a fun multi-class. Typically, we would have a bonus action from Great Weapon Master. You could add in the War Cleric to get another 3 bonus action attacks for when we don't have that. It can be pretty decent sometimes. I'm going to keep it just a fighter to keep it simple, as we already have a more complex build a little bit later on. Tough feat to increase your health by 2 is another good one for 24 extra health. Lucky can help save you as well, because this is going to be someone that gets a lot of hits. And another really fun feat is Mage Slayer. So when a creature casts a spell within melee range, you have advantage on saving throws against it, and you can use a reaction to immediately make an attack against the caster. So this can be kind of similar to Riposte, giving you kind of a mage slaying ability. I'm going to go with the Constitution increase, but go with a Strength increase if you're not going to use a potion to increase your Strength. Now the fighter has a lot of really good gear. For armor, like the Dwarven Splint Mail is great because it gives a +2 to Constitution, which will give us a lot of extra survivability up to 136 health. But early game, best available heavy to medium armor. Sometimes like even the Adamantine Scale Mail will be better because we do have a little bonus to our armor class on from the Dexterity modifier. So really use the best available. We don't have anyone else in the team for heavy armor, so if you're in like the end of Act 2, Reaper's Embrace can be a decent choice. Probably best to go with the Adamantine Heavy Mail and the Adamantine. I do have, again, a build on Act 1, so if you're curious about items for that. I like the Dwarven Splint Mail, but the true best is probably like the Heldisk Armor. This is just a really good heavy armor. And if you went with a good aligned playthrough, the Armor of Persistence. This is only if you have Daemon. It kind of makes sense for Karlach to wear this. Magical Plate increases or decreases all damage by 2, and you also get Resistance and Blade Ward, which will make you take half physical damage, which is really nice. I also have the Cloak of Elemental Absorption, which lets you take half elemental damage from a spell, and then you deal an additional 1d6 of damage on it next attack. We also got Steel Watcher Helmet in Act 3. It's, again, another lore appropriate item for Karlach. This gives you advantage on Constitution saving throws. We don't care about that. We don't want to be blinded. This lets us hide in darkness and not be affected by it, so we can hunt down anyone that hides in darkness too. The Mask of Soul Perception is another good choice. This gives us a +2 to our attack rolls, offsetting our Great Weapon Master. I also have the Crater Flesh Gloves here because whenever we score a critical hit, we get an additional 1d6 of force damage. It's very powerful because we can get a free crit with the Killer Sweetheart here. I also like Disintegrating Nightwalkers. These give us Misty Step, and we can't be entangled or slip on ice or grease, so we can actually teleport up to them and be pretty offensive. The Sethin Axe is really good because we can make an enemy reduce themselves. We can also, with this sword, create a Spiritual Great Axe for 10 turns, and it's really powerful, doing a good amount of damage. But you don't have to use Sethin. My personal preference, if we really want to maximize damage, is Baldur's Giant Slayer. We get this in the late game. So again, use the best available. If you got like Corpse Grinder, it's pretty decent. Two-handers are going to be our best option. In the mid game, the Halberd of Vigilance is a great choice. Getting a bonus to initiative and additional force damage on our attacks is great. It also has extra reach. Knight Rollin is another choice that we can go with. You can actually throw it. The Sword of Chaos in the late game is another one, giving you health back on hit. Actually, this is probably the best if we want to make ourselves pretty synergetic, because this gives us additional damage die. It gives us a 1d6 healing, but this becomes 6 healing every turn if you use the Periapta Wound Closure, which maximizes any healing you get. So that 1d6 becomes 6, and you can do that 3 times per turn, so you can get yourself 18 health back on a single action. That's pretty nuts. We also have Gaunter Mail because that'll give us haste, and this haste won't give us lethargy, so we can actually apply this before we get into a fight, and it does pretty crazy damage. We also have the Caustic Band there because we get multiple attacks, so the extra damage die is actually really useful. And yeah, putting this all together, it's quite strong. Now you can roll with Gale as a wizard if you prefer, but I like Sorcerer because they're just stronger. The Sorcerer is really good because Quicken Spell lets you cast a bonus action spell, so while the wizards cast 1 spell per turn, the Sorcerer can cast 2 spells per turn. 2 is better than 1 in my personal preference. I like the Sorcerer. It also has some easier playstyles. The Wizard's very complex because you have to use it's more utility based where you have to swap spells around. This just goes to blasting. I like the new Shadow Magic. It's complex. Storm Sorcerer is probably the most straightforward sorcerer in the game. I prefer that. But another really good one is the Draconic. And the reason I'm going to recommend the Draconic as well is because it gets its own armor class boost. So you don't have to use Mage Armor every time that you're playing. The Storm Sorcerer is a little bit stronger. So if you prefer to Storm Sorcerer, you can play as that and follow this build kind of the exact same. Just the choice that we get here is we can go with, I like the Draconic Ancestry White because this gives us Armor of Agathis, which we normally wouldn't get, which is a good spell to deal a little extra damage. But why this is good is at level 6, we can add additional damage onto our cold damage equal to our Charisma modifier. The Fire Ancestry is good at Scorch and Ray, but I think that the cold one is my personal preference. You can choose from those as you want. It's kind of personal preference at that area. And our stat spread, I would recommend going with 16 Constitution, 16 Dexterity. This is a class that wants to go first in combat, so we're going to try and let them go first by boosting our initiative. You can swap that with Constitution if you prefer, but the Draconic Sorcerer actually gets a bit more health too, so that's kind of nice in itself. And level 2 gives us a very powerful, this is the core principle of a Sorcerer. If you've never played them, I'll make it as simple as possible for you. Distance spell will increase a spell's range by 50%. Extended spell will give us a ton of buffs off of them. And twin spell lets us do a twin casting of a spell onto us and another person. Twin spell is kind of broken right now. There is a little trick that you can do, and I'll show it in this video. I would recommend at the first level to take distance spell. If you can't hit someone with a spell, use this. Extended spell, if you have a certain condition that you want to apply, this will actually proc a lot of the gear in the game. It's the most underrated choice, so I would recommend taking it here, as it doesn't require a lot of thinking. But our next level is when we get our best choice. We also, I guess forgot to mention spells we want to grab. We want to have shield, magic missile, and either thunder wave or ice knife is good. And you could even throw on fog cloud, but I would recommend grabbing thunder wave, magic missile, and shield. I guess I accidentally grabbed chromatic orb there, so you can swap that off if you didn't want to use chromatic orb. It's an okay spell though. And once we hit level 3, I would recommend Misty Step or Scorching Ray. Now, Scorching Ray, this is the reason I mentioned the Lake Cleric. It's a really good spell. It does an attack roll, so it's more likely to hit. And we also get Quicken Spell. So this lets us do a spell as a bonus action. It takes 3 sorcery points, so it's a little bit steep. I would only recommend doing it when you really needed it, but don't let yourself do a long rest without using it. We get sorcery points every level, and that's what's basically quickened spell fuel at this point. Now, I guess I didn't mention cantrips. We want to take as many damage ones as we can. So Firebolt's good, Ice, Ray of Frost, Shocking Grasp are good choices. You can also throw on Mage Hand there as well. So any of these are going to be decent choices for damage. Firebolt just being a good consistent choice for it does an attack roll, which makes it a little easier to land. We can also take Hold Person here because Scorching Ray can actually critically hit off this. So if your first turn you land Hold Person, you can then do a Scorching Ray and critically hit on it, and it's pretty nuts. We also can take the Alert Feed. I'd recommend having your Sorcerer also. Sorcerer and Fighter going first, and then your Cleric and Bard going second, or more support. Better to go second. These want to take out enemies quickly, so I'd recommend Alert at the start for both of these. Level 5 gives us a very powerful spell choice between Lightning Bolt, which is a huge area of effect straightforward attack, Fireball, a huge area of effect, which our Cleric will also have at this level, or Counterspell, which protects the team. I would actually recommend having Counterspell first, because this will protect our team and keep us alive. Although Lightning Bolt is great for damage, you can take that if you prefer. Counterspell just really nice, because otherwise your team can get hit with some pretty nasty spells. As yeah, we wouldn't get it as a Bard to level 10 if we took it there. Level 6 gives us our Elemental Affinity, so we now add our Charisma modifier to any cold damage that we deal. If you took fire, it'll apply it to the fire. And then we're going to take Lightning Bolt. Now, it's a really powerful spell because, again, it has a huge range, so you can hit a bunch of enemies at once. Level 7 gives us another really good spell with Ice Storm. Why this is so good? So it does an ice surface for 2 turns. I mentioned extended spell earlier. You can actually extend that to 4 turns if you want to make difficult terrain, and it doesn't require concentration, and it does damage. I'm typically trending towards more damage-based spells. That's the ones that people really like to use and are a bit easier to understand. And at level 8 here, Fireball. Nice to have, especially if enemies are grouped up into an area. And we're going to take our Charisma modifier increase because at next level, we'll now add another point of damage onto the very powerful Cone of Cold, which our Bard also has. Huge area of effect. It does cold damage 8d8. It can be doubled with water, so that's strong. And if you have the Storm Sorcerer will get Create Water, so you can twin those. Or you can Quicken Spell another one after. We'll take Mage Hand here, and then for the next spell that we'll grab, Hold Monster. It's good to have a couple targets with that. And for our last meta magic, we're going to take Twin Spell. Now, previously, you were able to twin Chain Lightning, the most powerful damage spell in the game, and I'm going to show you guys how you can still do that. I don't think they're going to patch it, so it's likely going to stay in the game. Level 11, Draconic gets the ability to fly. That's great. And we get Chain Lightning. Enough said. Now, I'd also recommend Globe of Invulnerability for 3 turns, and if you use Extended Spell, 6 turns. You don't take any damage inside of the globe. It's a really good spell. There's an item that we want to use, or a couple, that doesn't let us get shoved because enemies try to shove you out of it. So we're going to take that. We'll stay with the Sorcerer all the way to level 12, and we'll go with an ability score improvement on the Charisma. Now, there's a few really good hats in the game. There's the late game Hood of the Weave, which will give a bonus to your spell save DC. But the best hat in the game, I would say, is the Hat of Fire Acuity, because you get that Arcane Acuity that I talked about for the Bard, which boosts your spell save DC, and you do get it from fire damage, which Scorching Ray is a multi-hit fire attack, which procs this hat multiple times. Crazy combination. We also want to have the Cloak of Displacement here, which activates at the start of the turn, giving enemies disadvantage on attack rolls, so they're less likely to attack him. Even though he doesn't have the lowest armor class, he's still going to be a target because he'll hold concentration, so the enemies stop that. We also got the Robe of the Weave here, which will add a +1 to spell save DC and attack rolls, and a +2 to armor class, and we're getting a bonus from our dexterity and the Draconic Resilience. I like the Gemini Gloves. Cantrips that can target allies, and enemies can target an additional target. This is really good. However, we can also stack reverberation for our team using the gloves of belligerent skies when we deal thunder, lightning, or radiant damage. We also got the Helldusk boots on here, so you cannot be forcibly moved. And this is great because we can use Globe of Invulnerability and hide out in it. We can't get shoved out of it. And it also gives us a teleport. There's also the Boots of Striding from Minthara in Act 1, which will do the same. Now, the best staff in the game is Marka Heshker, because this gives us the Kreska's favor. If we go with the Bolts of Doom, this is how we can do the twin spell. So whenever you see the twin spell here, you can actually twin chain lightning. So you can target 2 targets with the chain lightning. It's absolutely busted and powerful, but you can do it. I also have the Ring of Regeneration here, as he needs a bit of support staying alive. The Sorcerer typically does. Coruscation Ring, when we deal damage while we're illuminated, which Blood of Lathander will do that for us, we apply Radiating Orbs. So we can provide a bit of extra support for our Cleric, because we'll also be doing Reverberation and Radiating Orbs. We also want to have the Spell Crux Amulet. This gives you spell slot restoration. Since we are playing a Sorcerer instead of a Wizard, we have a way to now regenerate our spell slots. But you could also go with, like, there's actually a lot of really good ones. Early game, the Amulet of Restoration gives you the ability to heal. The Psychic Spark can give you an additional magic missile, which is good because that procs the Radiating Orb. Like, there's a lot of fun choices. And we also have the Hell Rider Longbow, because this gives us a +3 to initiative, so we go first in combat, or potentially go first. It's really good on a Sorcerer. And I also went with Ketheric Shield to give a +1 to spell save DC and spell attack rolls, and also the advantage on deck saving checks, which is good to have. All right, so into combat. We got really lucky there that they started combat with Spirit Guardians and it burned them to a crisp. So we actually got very lucky. This is why I like the alert feat. All 4 of us move together, so you can chain and combo your team together. That's why I like to have alert. At least alert at level 4 on both your melee attacker and your spellcaster, because them going first is really nice. Now, we want to drop down Globe of Invulnerability, but there's a catch. We also want to use the extended spell, because this will make it now last for 6 turns, which is going to be the entirety of combat. Now, the thing is, we then want to go and they failed counterspell on this. Perfect. We're going to run into it here and stand on the very edge of it. It's less likely for the enemies to come in here and attack us at this point. And the thing about a Sorcerer is they get quicken spell, so we can then go with like a Scorching Ray, which is nice because this will stack up our spell save DC, and we can upcast this to potentially take out, no, we're not going to take out this target, but what's great about that is we applied Reverberation and 8 stacks of Radiating Orbs on that enemy, so they are not likely to hit anybody on their turn, and that was it for our Sorcerer. So everybody can hang out here and be safe. Now for our fighter, I use the bow that I had to use Celestial Haste because there's no penalty if this breaks, so there's no point not to. This gives us 2 actions, because what a fighter is meant to do is go in here and do this. We'll get 6 health back every time we attack. They are insanely tanky. It is absurd. So we took out a target there. Perfect. We'll then go finish off this target here. So that's our first action. We got a free. We could have done the critical hit. 31 damage. That's nuts. We'll then run over here, and I'll attack this target here. If you need extra damage, you can do obviously the critical hit, which is obviously quite powerful, adding on a lot of extra damage. But if you need the damage, you can also use one of your weapon actions here to do further damage. We don't need it on this target, so I'm just going to attack. And that finished off another one, 28 damage, pretty crazy. This will hopefully finish off this target. I could go Insano Sicko mode and use the action surge here. And we also have a bonus action attack that we could use. I don't have enough movement speed. So I guess the next choice here is, do we need to heal anyone or ourselves? Do we need to position ourselves? We have a lot of bonus actions on this. If nothing else, I would recommend protecting your Cleric, as they're going to have the lowest health and survivability on this team. Using that will give them a bit of extra health. They can stay inside of here, but Spirit Guardians is good. If you have the movement speed to get in and out, you want to debuff the enemy with this. I use them to start combat off. Nothing to do here. There's also, I guess, the Whispering Promise from Volo. You can use Healing Word to protect your team with that. But we're just going to stand here because this keeps us alive as well. And yeah, we're pretty safe here. Now onto our Bard. This is the face of the party. They can do it all. So if you need them to run in and attack, we can get them running in and attacking. I'm not going to be able to reach this target here, unfortunately. But that's exactly why we wanted spells. So Cone of Cold could actually hit here. That's not a bad choice. I wanted to do a ranged weapon or a weapon attack here. So I guess I could hold my concentration on Banishing Smite. I really don't like this target. So I could go with a weapon attack and try to hit one of these targets here. I guess this woman's in the way, so I actually can't attack that one. So I'll try to banish this target, 90% chance. I'll go with the crit, and that was enough to take out the target. Perfect. I unfortunately still can't move, so I'm going to go with a... since we did a weapon attack, this actually is really good. We can go with a Slashing Flourish. And this target, I shot the floor. I thought I was attacking the target. Never mind. Now, for some reason, they're still going to try and attack there, but yeah, you're invulnerable. They can't really hit you there. So that's the beautiful thing, is they're also going to be grouped up together. And then we have our cleric's improved warding flare. So they needed a 22 to hit, they rolled a 24. We can use improved warding flare to pretty much protect them guaranteed, because well, it didn't end up working. Almost guaranteed, because it makes them roll another die and they have to use that die to hit. So it's really good, especially if there's a critical hit. I should have saved it for that one there, because it can turn a critical hit into a critical miss even. Now, the reason we have counterspell is for this spell here, command. If you have the Illithid ability, Psionic Dominance, this can do it for you. Otherwise, you're going to want to use your reaction on counterspell. You need to have someone stop that from happening, because it can really shut down your team, especially a hold person or command. That's kind of the biggest downside to a team composition, is that there, because it can really end a run. We're going to not counterspell the Fire Elemental, because when we take out this target, that Fire Elemental goes away, so they actually wasted their turn summoning it into the Spirit Guardians. Now, the beautiful thing about this is everyone's invulnerable. They'll also try to move in here too, and it's okay to have this in here, because it can't attack us, it can't do anything. But what we're going to do is then we're going to go and take out this target here, because that's going to get rid of that elemental, and Karlach just hits like a truck. So powerful. We missed, unfortunately, and boom, there we go. Elemental go bye-bye. It's okay to stay there, but if you have your team stand on the edge of the globe of invulnerability, it'll keep them safe. So the fighter's job is really just that. They get in. If there's a target that needs removing of their weapon, you can do that. You can make them drop their weapon. You can also pick it up for free. I'd recommend doing that. It's kind of funny. And then you can also disarm pretty much everyone. It's kind of fun. That's really the thing with the Battle Master, is they're powerful at doing a lot of annoying things to just help your team. And we dropped 3 weapons there. We could use Action Surge and do that all over again. And I'd also recommend using different magical arrows, like an arrow of many targets. You can hit multiple targets at a time. That is really good. Now is our turn to do another spell. As mentioned, we have our crowd control down, or we have our survivability down. We can also do crowd control by dropping Ice Storm just on the edge there, because we got a bonus damage on our cold damage. This will also apply Radiating Orbs. It summoned in more guards to show you guys more combat. And yeah, we now debuff the enemies with 4 stacks of Radiating Orbs. So they're -4 to their attack rolls. They don't have their weapons. They're standing on ice. We have them in the worst position possible here. Our Cleric still hasn't moved, but if we had more movement speed, I'd recommend getting the Cleric to run up there to apply the Spirit Guardian's damage. I don't like to use Fireball. This would be kind of funny to use it here. I guess Destructive Wave is also a nice option, because I'll show you the Destructive Wave area of effect. It's huge. So you can actually get really lucky. We could be a little silly here, just because we're doing really well in combat, and then go use Destructive Wave and try to hit a few targets from here, right at the edge of the ice. I might be able to, yeah, I can hit 2 of them. So I'll go with this for the pushback. It's kind of funny. And that just knocked both of them dead. Didn't even knock them prone. That's fine. Our Cleric can also be somewhat of a frontliner if you need them to be, because Spirit Guardians will damage the enemies. Now it's our turn. One thing that I mentioned is the spell save DC. We can get that from that arrow many targets with the Hat of Arcane Acuity that we have on this character here. So we're going to attack this target. It's going to spread around to multiple targets, and that gave us now a +9 to our Arcane Acuity. So we have a spell save DC of 26. The enemy has a very hard time rolling that. I'll let you know that. And we may as well just finish or follow it up with another arrow of many targets, because it's going to hit multiple targets, add that extra fire damage. Boom. The great thing about that is now that it triggers the Band of the Mystic Scoundrels, so we can do a Vicious Mockery or Dissonant Whispers, because this is a spell that'll deal damage, kind of nice. So you can go ahead and hit someone with that. But Dissonant Vicious Mockery is nice if you don't want to spend a spell slot. Another fun option is we have control and our command. I can't actually go and reach these targets. So what I can do is I can go 95% hit chance on all 4 of them, upcasting this. They are now all going to be walking towards us. Nobody has to even act. We can just all skip our turns. And yeah, you're going to see here, they'll all just run towards us. So this is the beauty of that item that I mentioned. It puts everything all together, because then we can just have enemies coming running at us, just as you see there. And then you can literally go to your... Anyone could end this right now, because whenever I cast that, they all walk together. So we could have our Cleric drop a Fireball. We get counterspelled. That was bound to happen at one point. We could also then have our Cleric, if we were in a position where they could run up and run towards them, we could just run up and drop, use our Spirit Guardians. We also got Destructive Wave, which will hit all 4 of them. Perfect. That was great. Didn't finish them off. That's okay. We can then use any of our other characters here. And the fun thing about Cone of Cold is Cone of Cold has a huge radius, so our Bard has a large area of effect. I didn't even show it, but our Bard also has the Cone of Cold, not Cone of Cold, but the Slashing Flourish. And if you go into your spells here and go into the Paladin, and actually go into reactions, you can turn Divine Smite on as a reaction. So whenever you attack an enemy, it'll automatically Divine Smite them. And I wouldn't recommend going past level 4. It'll actually use your highest level spell slot. So only levels 1 through 3 I typically use. And what this means is when you do your slashing flourish, you're then going to smite 2 enemies at a time. It's very powerful. So yeah, that is kind of a beginner guide to Baldur's Gate, beginner party guide. You have it all. You got the face of the party, your melee combatant, your tanky character, you have your healer support, and you have a spellcaster. You got it all here. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm always quick to get back to people if they have any questions regarding this. And I do have other builds specifically on Act 1. I do have a full Shadow party team if you want to go full on Darkness. I also have an honor mode playthrough if you want a bit more of difficult tactics. And I also got a tactician party. So check all those out. Lots of great stuff there. I hope you have a great day. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one.